Hello and welcome back to the She Invest podcast with your hosts. I am Allie Fugit.
And I'm your host, Carrie Douglas.
And we are She Invest live from Massachusetts.
This is a monumental episode because we have never been in the same region of the country, much less the same room for an episode. So it's super exciting.
Yes.
And we have an amazing guest live. So I can't wait to share Brittany's bio. Brittany Udemark has used multiple real estate investing strategies to launch her financial freedom journey. From beginning as a personal trainer with a capped income to then a real estate agent with a unlimited income potential to then buying 6 properties in 6 months. Brittany is the queen of real estate investing strategies, and now she owns a boutique hotel and is currently underwriting an offer on another one. Listen to the words of wisdom of the young and on fire queen of real estate investing strategies. We're so excited to have you.
I have to send that to you so you can use it for your next podcast.
Right. There we go. Definitely. So start by telling us how you got into real estate investing.
Yeah. So back in college, well, let me rewind a little bit. So my dad was a contractor. So I grew up in construction. I was roofing houses when I was 14. So just immersed in the world of construction at a young age. And then fast forward to college, I was like, real estate would be cool. That'd be like a nice route to go into. And so I ordered Jay Scott's book on flipping houses back in college. And I owned it for, I think, probably like 5 or 6 years before actually like reading it, like fully cover to cover reading it. So then after college, it was kind of a financial thing. Like I never had the money to like get into buying a property or anything like that. So like most of us, we just keep making excuses and putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And then I finally got to the point where I was like, I'm going to stop putting it off and I'm going to do it. So I ordered as many books as I could. I just kept reading about every different strategy you could possibly do with real estate. And now I'm here.
Awesome. So you tell us about your first deal.
Okay. So my first deal was kind of a mix and a merge of multiple different strategies. So I got connected with a wholesaler in the state of Michigan, who I was able to bring enough value that he felt comfortable mentoring me. I knew I wanted to start flipping. So he had a property that I really liked off market. I went and toured it, thought it would make a really good flip. And then in the process, I ended up deciding that I liked it enough that I wanted to live in it. So I bought it off market as a wholesale. I used hard money to purchase that property, did a refi after I renovated it, and then I ended up just moving into it as my primary. Nice. That was my first deal. I sold it a year later and ended up flipping it basically at that point and made a good chunk of money on it.
So it's like 3-4 strategies in like one property.
Yeah. So not easy. Just throw them all into a bucket and pick and choose.
And so your mentor, I guess, went through. Did they explain the different strategies to you? Did they offer up any advice when you started that process, or how did that work?
Yeah. So my mentor is actually the one that funded it for me. So he did, because I had been working with him for about 6 months at that time already. He felt comfortable, so he gave me 100% of the financing plus the renovation costs. But he shadowed me the whole way. So kind of every step of the way, he would come and look at the property and make sure I was on the right track. And we went through and talked construction costs from the beginning to make sure that I wasn't going to go over budget or to make sure that my projections were correct. And then he kind of walked me through the process of, well, if you're not going to sell this right now and truly flip it, then here's what we need to do as far as like a refinance goes. So yeah, he kind of just like
walks you through like exit strategies and everything, right? Which is nice. Like a lot of us don't have that. It's like we just kind of have to fall on our face before we as we learn. So that was nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So you obviously have tried a lot of different strategies, especially now that was your first deal, right? So then you went on this buying spree and bought 6 properties in 6 months, but more recently you've landed on a current niche of looking at boutique hotels. Tell us why that.
Yeah. So from my first deal to where I'm at with buying the hotel a couple months ago, I have used multiple different strategies. So that first one I flipped it. I did the refi on it. Then I sold it and made the profit off of it. I've flipped multiple houses between then and now. I bought long-term rentals. Those are fine. They're good. But to me, they were just kind of boring. They were just there. Like, they're great. They're good, steady income, but they're not fun and fast paced.
After you renovate it, it's exciting, and then you're like, well, damn, I can't get back in the house. Now what?
My tenant's there. They're good. So then it's like, what's next? And then I kind of like, similar to you, Allie, like I realized the $400 and $500 a month I was making on these was not going to get me anywhere as quickly as I wanted to. So I found 2 short-term properties, which was actually kind of a cool story. It was listed as a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. And then as I dug into it and looked at the photos and everything, I realized that it was 2 completely separate cabins on 2 different lots, but it was a low enough purchase price that the lender had to combine them into one mortgage. So I kind of got a 2-for-1 deal on that, which was cool. Yeah. So that's how I stumbled into short-term renting, because it's in a vacation market in Michigan. So once I I didn't have a mentor for that. So once I got those going and kind of tripped and fell on my face through the process, I found a group of, like, a network that helps me make those successful. And then that's right when all the regulations changed and everything started, cracking down and getting stricter. And I don't want the regulations to be the reason why I can't invest and grow my wealth and help my family. So I found boutique hotels are a great strategy. I had a friend come to me that found one, and great area, good spot in Michigan for vacationing. And we got that. And then it clicked, going from a single family home that has kind of the capped income potential of the other comparable single family homes around it, to finding a commercial property that I can create the value in, was like, it was an epiphany to me. So now I have that hotel and I'm just full speed ahead on hotels.
As well as multiple in like one place that you're not having to like travel to, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It just makes everything more efficient.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So for you, the hotel, and Allie and I have talked about this, where sometimes hotel regulation can be red tape. And so Allie prefers not to be under hotel zoning and prefers to keep short-term rental law. Whereas for me, like, because short-term regulations are restrictive, I prefer the hotel zoning, the hotel licensing, and it sounds like that for you is like what you were looking for as well.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Just awesome. To go full into hotels, like, even if it is a little bit more work up front with the licensing and stuff, to have that protection and know that you're never going to be subjected to the short-term rental regulations that some city official decides to put into place is huge for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so let's just like speak to that just a little bit. So like, what in Michigan where you're at, are there already certain regulations where your hotel is that like prevent you, like for instance, Carrie's, like if she was to go short-term rental, she can only rent 6 months out of the year. So like, what are the stipulations around in your area?
Yeah. So where my hotel is, there are regulations within the city. So within this little water town, but the motel sits right on the outskirts of that township. And so no matter which way no matter which way I go with that hotel, I could go short-term rental or I could go motel, and I would be fine either way. But who knows what's going to happen in 3, 5, 10 years from now? They might completely come down and slide that scale out.
You're protected.
Correct.
Yeah. I understand.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what are your next steps and future goals?
Yeah. So kind of in my bio, as it said, I am looking at more boutique hotels, and I'm focusing solely on the Michigan vacation market, because as Avery Carl says, the regional drivable vacation markets are kind of key. So Michiganders love up North Michigan. It's just a hidden paradise in the U.S. So I'm focusing solely on boutique hotel kind of exhausted owners that aren't operating correctly. So solely value add in vacation spots in Michigan. And the biggest thing I learned from that first hotel is that it needs to be big enough that I'm not, as Mike always says, buying another job, because my current hotel is small enough that I could make the excuse that I don't need support and I can operate it myself. So making sure that I'm going big enough that I can't do it myself. I need to create that team, but also doing it in a calculated way that I'm not just recklessly buying properties across Michigan.
Yeah, and so how many units is the one you have now?
The one that I currently own is 10 units.
Okay. And so like our rule for like, I say our rule, but the suggested, like what we kind of look at is we're going for like 10 or more in a specific area for that reason. So that's a great point that you brought up, because a lot of people probably think the same thing. Like, because it's very similarly as if you were doing 10 single family homes, that you know that we have a property management system that we could do by ourselves. That's a really good point. So what do you think your new threshold is that you would be looking for? Do you have like that number in mind?
Yeah, I mean, not really a number. I think it's more for me the setup of the property. So the new one that I'm looking at is 13 individual cabins with a 10 unit, almost like apartment style on the property. And it's going to take a boots on the ground team to I need a cleaning team. I need a maintenance person. It's just a bigger scale. So I think it really depends on the layout, because the current property that I have it's 10 units side by side. Like it's like a 3,000 square foot ranch is basically how it's like a little motel strip. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So bigger than that, but not too big that I'm like drowning. You know what I mean? Yeah.
But I think that's an interesting answer. Like it depends on the layout, because like some people wouldn't think of it that way, right? They're just looking at number of units.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So if we change our topic a little bit to talk about wealth building in general, we always ask people, how often do you look at and track your personal financial statement? What metrics are you tracking there, and how do you know if you're being successful?
That's a great question.
And honesty is okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to be really honest right now. I don't track my financial statement until my lender says I need an updated financial statement.
We said similar answers, yes.
Which I'm going through right now, because he's like, I can't give you a loan without your updated financial statement. So don't take that advice, I guess it would be my biggest thing is, you need to set up some sort of like regularly check on that.
Or be buying enough properties that your lender reads it monthly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't currently track it. However, I do know what my wealth and my financial goals are for me and my family. So Nick and I have sat down and had a conversation about, what does our future look like? What do we want our day-to-day look like? How many kids do we want? Where do we want to live in the country? And then we take that and we put a number onto it. So then we calculate out like, what is our perfect life and how much is it going to cost us to live that perfect life?
Sure.
So once we figured that out, I know that I need to have a certain net worth in order for us to both quote unquote leave our jobs and be full-time into real estate investing and just operating our properties. So really it's a net worth number that we're looking at tracking. There's baby steps along the way. Obviously, Nick can't leave his job until we have enough cash flow every month and things like that. So it's multiple different pieces that we're tracking. We just need to get into a more regular habit of doing it. Yeah.
But at least you've had the conversation with him and you two are on the same page. And I think so often people set goals and they're like, oh, I want to do this someday. I want to do this someday. And if you don't really think about like, okay, how much is that lifestyle going to cost me? Especially if we continue to see inflation by the time we get there, right? So I think it's so important and so great that you're doing that.
Yeah. And I think too, like what you just said, if you just keep saying someday, it's never going to happen.
Right.
You have to take that number or that goal or that lifestyle that you want and put the time frame on it and put the strategy that you're going to use to get there. So yes, I've done all of these different investing strategies, but in the end, we've found the one that we know is going to work for us. It's going to get there as quickly as we want to get there. So I think that's important, that you're not just saying, I want to do this in my life, or I want this net worth or this much cash flow. What does that actually look like when you put pen to paper and map it out? Because otherwise you're just going through the motions.
Absolutely. Like people, a lot of people that are not as open and honest about this stuff as we are, and like don't have these conversations regularly, it's a scary topic for them, right? I mean, we've spoken to people and we ask them about their goals and what their future looks like, and there's never they never want to put a number on it, right? It's just like, if I could do this, if I could do that. There's never a plan, there's never a number. And like, all honesty, there's a number, right? There's a number that you know that you could live comfortable, and then there's a number you know that you could essentially live very well and financially free. But I just don't think, like, a lot of people like you have had the conversation, have mapped that out, have tracked it, and are putting the number on it. And I mean, we had the discussion yesterday. We're all here at a mastermind event, and it was the day before yesterday, where we're actually going over our goals and looking at it. And like, so many times we, like, even now, like, multiple of us have to be reminded, like, what is that number? Okay. Like, you have this goal, but like, what's the number that's going to get you there? What, and so I love that you guys know what it is, even if you're not tracking it monthly, like, you've ultimately had the conversation and you know.
And I think too, it goes beyond just Nick and I knowing, like if just Nick and I know, yes, we can hold each other accountable, but who's holding us accountable?
Exactly.
So being in a community that of people that are going to support you and that actually know what your legitimate goal is, like down to the dollar amount. Like we've all talked about like what my net worth goal is and all of that, and what I need to make monthly to get Nick out of his career is so important, because like I said, you don't have anybody holding you accountable. So if you're sitting there making excuses and not progressing, one of you girls is going to pick up the phone and call me and be like, get off your butt, let's go. Well,
and also like, it's great because like when you are analyzing deals and you're coming to us and we're looking at these deals together, we can be like Brittany is like, is this going to get you to your goal? Like,
does that fit?
Yeah. Like, I know you're really excited about this deal, but does it fit in this category? And so I think that is the power of this group.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it's so easy to, like, for a lot of people, talking about with their spouse or in general about net worth or financial goals can be really stressful. I mean, it's definitely a stressful topic for marriages historically. And I think some of that is changing, and I think some of those barriers are coming down. And I feel like I'm in an environment more often where we can talk openly about finance and support each other, and there's less stigma or judgment to having those types of conversations. But I feel like sometimes it's just easier to bury your head in the sand and hope that when you get to the end you have enough. And so being more purposeful is so important. So it's so great that you're doing that.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think we sort of alluded to this idea of community. And so even though it might not be in our agenda of questions, I want to ask about, like, tell us your thoughts on the sense of community around what you're doing.
Yeah, so I've always been a big proponent of, you need to be the dumbest person in the room by far. You always need to be reaching for that next level. If you're in a room or if you're surrounded by people in your day-to-day life that are on your level, or and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with being above, like, level wise where people are and bringing them up to your level.
Right.
But at some point you need to look out for yourself and get brought to the next level too. So I think finding that community of people and not just a random community, right? Like us girls, like, we can go out to the bar and have a drink and have a real life conversation. It's not just superficial, all about business.
Right.
So I think having the people that you can actually lean on and be vulnerable with and cry in front of. And I just think that's so important. Otherwise, it's a really lonely sport, especially if you're a female. Like, it's super lonely in this world. So yeah, just finding that community of people that's going to pull you to that next level, and keep striving for that too. So if you find that you're in the room and you're the one coaching everyone, find another room. Like, you can stay in that room, definitely.
Right.
Help people, of course, yes. But look for that next room and keep going.
Like, but I think that that's a great like segue into like you should always be in multiple rooms.
Yes.
You should always be in multiple rooms because that is the true power of masterminds is that you continually have people of different levels in every room that you're in because you need to keep pushing. You need to be pushing somebody because it should continually be a value add no matter where you're at all the different levels.
And you can I still learn a lot from people back home that I mentor. They'll come to me with questions or strategies or a scenario, and you can learn from that. So I still think there's importance and value in that as well. But yeah, finding people that are at that next level and that are doing bigger things than you is definitely where you're going to see a lot of success.
I forget the phrase, but there's some kind of little phrase around like when you enter a new community, finding someone you can mentor, finding someone to walk alongside you, and someone that's ahead of you that can mentor you.
Yeah.
And so like having all three of those is so important.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. And I think we've just spent so much time over the last couple of days being in the same rooms with some of these other women who are doing such amazing things that like I'm really just so grateful for these communities as well. And we've spent a lot of time talking about it, but it's so important for me to have that because entrepreneurship is sometimes lonely for two reasons. We were having this conversation last night with someone. It's not only that like you're not going into the office where there's a water cooler and you can chit chat, but it's also that sometimes you're the only one in your world who's doing that exact thing, right? And so having other people, even if they're across the country, to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah. And I would love for us to like have just a small conversation around kind of what we were talking about yesterday out by the water is like how important is it like when you were coming into this so just like a little background for our listeners, so we are all in the same mastermind group for general short-term rentals, but then we are now all part of a higher group within the same mastermind for people that are going after larger commercial properties, boutique hotels. So when making those decisions, like to jump from one level to the next, right, through your journey, how important was it for you to be in a room with like other women? Did that play a piece to it? And if it didn't, that's okay. But did it play a piece to it? And how much weight did that have on your decision to like what room, the next room you need to be in?
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, that's a tough question. I've never been one to get along with females very well. I grew up with a brother and I was always surrounded by him and his friends. So it's really hard to make a connection with a female. So it was very important to me because just your natural tendency, like I can have a conversation with you, Allie, that I can't go and talk to one of the other guys in the mastermind with and be as vulnerable with you as I would with somebody else. Excuse me. So I think that that's super important. And it was very important for me. After the initial call of like, hey, you should join this group of people. They're doing the things that you want to be doing and you kind of already are doing. I hung up the phone and I called Carrie and I was like, Carrie, what do I do? Like, is it worth it? Should I be in this group? Because it's important to me to have people that I can lean on. Yeah. But also just females that I can connect with. Like, yes, you two are at different levels than I am. Like, I don't have kids. I don't have the family life that you guys do, but I can look up to you in that way and I can learn from what you girls are already doing in that space. So yeah, I think it was very important for me to have females in the group of, our mastermind is very small. It's like 25 of us. Yeah. So having almost half of them be females was a game changer.
Less than half. Less than half. It's like six
or seven of us.
6 or 7 of 25.
Okay, so a third of us.
Yeah.
Is females.
But that's huge.
That's big.
That's massive. It's massive. Yeah. Especially in this world that's primarily dominated by males.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You can just it's the connection that you make. Yeah. And like Carrie, you and I are on we're on very similar paths with our investing right now.
Sure.
And so if I'm having an issue at my hotel, I can pick up the phone and call you and we can laugh and cry together because you had a conversation like that yesterday.
Yes.
So it's really, it was really important to me that I could have a network of females that I can not just a network of people that I'm like talking to, a network of friends that I've like made lifelong friends with is
Yeah.
is big. Yeah.
So important.
Yeah.
So totally different topic.
Yeah.
What would you have done differently in investing in general, knowing what you know today? Like if there was is there anything you would
To
change?
go back. Oh gosh.
And if not, that's okay.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't change any of it because I've learned so much from it. I've fallen on my face. I've cried. I've been through all of that, and I've had to solve so many problems in my real estate investing. So it's brought me to where I am today. So no, I wouldn't go back and change any of it. However, if I had the knowledge that I have today, even just a year ago, I probably wouldn't have, as I like to say, it squirreled so many times of like, I like this strategy and I like this area of the country. I would have just honed in and found that niche that I know I like. But again, like I said, doing all of those things brought me to know the niche that I like.
Yeah.
So it's okay if you don't have that strategy that you know is going to be the end result. Like find what you love, find what brings you fire.
But you have all these tools in your toolbox.
Yeah.
Like moving forward, you have all these strategies you can use for exit strategies or new investing. So you can literally take on anything that's thrown your way.
Right. I think that's important too. Like when you get into a property or you're in a situation, like you need to have multiple exit strategies. And that's the reason why I have all of this different experience of like flipping, burring, wholesaling, rental, because I'll get a property and the original plan that I had for that property just isn't feasible, especially with the way the market's changing right now so quickly. You have to be able to pivot and make sure that you're making the best financial decision for you and your family. So if that changes, that's okay, as long as it's going to still progress you. So yeah.
Does it align with your goals? Like we talked about earlier, does it align with your goals and is it going to get you to the next step?
Right.
And it's okay to pivot.
That's right.
Yep. Correct.
So what is the most exciting thing that you've gotten to do on your investing journey? Like what thing has investing brought to you that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise been able to do?
Oh gosh, that's really hard. I have been able to, real estate has brought me to a point that I can take time off and I can go away for a couple weeks and not have to stress about money. I grew up in a very poor family and we always lived paycheck to paycheck, and we always knew where our next meal was coming from. It was never like that. My parents always had me in the sports that I wanted to be in and things like that, but we just didn't have money. We didn't talk about money. And so going from a life of poverty and debt to now being able to say to Nick, like, hey, let's go to Peru for 2 weeks and hike Machu Picchu, like that is so impactful and it changes your mindset in so many different ways. So the biggest thing that real estate has brought me is the fact in the opportunity to be able to just pack up and go and travel and do these things with people that are important to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate your time, Brittany.
Yeah. Of course.
And we've loved having, you on the show, but also spending time with you this week. Because I know, because it's like, again, like I said last night when we were out, it's just like you get with these people, and it's like we've known each other our whole lives.
Yes.
And we're just all so aligned, and that's empowering in itself. But yeah, so before we go away, tell our listeners how they can find you on socials.
Yeah. So I should have looked at my Instagram handle. I didn't even look it up before here. Instagram is BrittanyU_realtor. And that's pretty much all I'm on. You can find me on Facebook, Brittany Udemark. But really I spend most of my time on Instagram.
What about, do you have any sites or anything for your properties that they can follow your journey on?
Not yet. They're just on Airbnb right now, but they are linked to my Instagram. So if you want to look at my properties and stuff, we just did some really cool video reels of our short-term rentals. Those are really cool. But yeah, just Instagram. That's where you can find me.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for having me.
So
Yes,
much.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
That was great.
And it was so great to do this in person.
It was.
We'll do it again.
What a milestone.
We'll do it again in November.
November.
That's right.
Perfect.
Yes, that's perfect. All right. Well, we will see you guys next week.